First Contact with Joshua Put.
Welcome to First Contact Radio. Talk about all these things we're talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
It's time to demand the truth.
All right, welcome to First Contact Radio. How are you doing today? Thank you for being here. As it says at the beginning, everything is energy. Everything is energy around us. We live in a sea of energy. We feel the energy each and every day when we go out. It comes to us from various elements. It comes to us from all over the place. Not to mention the fact that we have televisions and electronic devices that are putting out signals all day that are adding into that field of energy. And we have all the thoughts of people because people give out thoughts that are part of the energetic pattern as well. There's a whole mishmash of energy each and every day we're dealing with. And so since that is the case, it's very important that we always be able to protect ourselves, to understand when we go out into the world, there could be some problems that we may not be prepared for unless we protect ourselves. So at the end of last show, I talked about the armor of God and the importance of wearing the armor of God. And that is true each and every day. So I just wanted to start the show, bring that up. It's important to always recognize that we need the protection in the world today because there's so much energies out there. And if we just look at life from that perspective, from an energy perspective, that might make a difference in the way in which we are dealing with life, looking at life, and making the choices we need to make through life. So lots going on. Lots going on in the world that we are experiencing. Sometimes it's so much that we become overwhelmed. Yesterday's show for me kind of felt like that because I just was giving so much information that it just seemed like it was too much. But it's never too much because there's so much out there that we just need to absorb it quickly. Not every show is going to be like that. I'm not going to overwhelm everybody with tons of information. But nonetheless, when the moment is required, need to provide you with a lot because it's not coming from the sources that are out there. It's not coming from the mainstream sources because they don't have a vested interest in that. I'll get into a segment one day. We'll get more into the fake news. However, you can go back to the show I did, episode 1717. There's a segment there on the fake news, which gives a nice, good breakdown. And there really is an issue with fake news in our country, not only in our country, but throughout the world. And because of that, we have challenges. But the alternative media is picking up the slack. Social network really isn't helping the situation because they're jumping in and they're censoring and they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. But it's the everyday patriot that's out there doing the work. The everyday patriot that's out there sharing the information, talking to people, letting people know what's going on. So one of the things that's going on is the Supreme Court hearing for Coney Barrett. And today was day 2. Yesterday was the introductions. Everybody got 10 minutes to talk. And then Amy got a chance to give her opening. Today, everybody got 30 minutes to talk. And it was quite the day. Quite the day indeed. The Democrats have a strategy. Each and every time they do exactly the same thing. Okay? Their efforts are always to try to get her to recuse herself from anything related to the ACA because according to them, the pre-existing conditions are going to be struck down, despite the fact that the president has said numerous times that that's not the case. It's the talking point, and every single Democrat that spoke today went with that talking point. They all accuse her of something. Cory Booker accused her of being a white supremacist. Funny thing is, she has 2 children that she adopted that are both black. So it's kind of rude that he would ask her something like that. None. Also, in the fact that he was asking her this while the kids were there present. So it really is, not very nice. The Democrats, they are horrible with what they do. They always wanted to ask her the question if she was willing to prejudge a case based on a hypothetical situation that they were giving. And every time that she would answer that no, she wasn't going to answer those questions, they always seem to make a big deal about it. Yet it's kind of strange because it's you should understand the morals involved, and it just seems throughout these proceedings that there are absolutely no morals that are to be found with any of these Democrat senators because they seem willing to lie, cheat, and steal and be disappointed in their own words, as they say, when she was not willing to go along with their game of lying, cheating, stealing, or just showing so little morals. But it just shows you where their mind is. And then, that was their strategy. And they just barrage her with this. And then, after they get done with those strategies, the last strategy they each employ is they all have someone they talk about that is sick, that is on the ACA. And when President Trump removes the pre-existing conditions, all these people are going to die because they all depend on it. And so they all go with that talking point, despite the fact that the president says he wasn't going to eliminate pre-existing conditions. They're all going with this. And then they all tell this heartfelt story about so-and-so. You can just fill in the blank on who it is because they all have somebody. They all have their pictures, their props, and their notebooks. Funny thing is, without their pictures behind them, without their charts, without their notebooks, it doesn't seem like any of these senators really are able to bring across any points. They're continuously looking down at their notes, reading their notes. It seems in many cases as if they are just receiving these notes before they walk in, and some of them are so unfamiliar with it, they just fumble through the entire time. It's really kind of disgusting to see the way that they are behaving, but it is quite admirable to see the way in which Amy has been operating and acting despite all of their bad behavior. She's been really, really good, and the answers she's given, it's very interesting to watch, and definitely something to learn. She's very intelligent. She's sitting there without any notes. She has one blank notepad in front of her, but she's not referring to any notes at all, and yet she's being asked all kind of tough questions, and she's answering the questions. She's bringing up quotes that she remembers and different precedents and cases. I mean, pretty impressive. Very, very impressive indeed. So this first article here is in regards to this. It says Amy Barrett bats away tough Democratic confirmation probing. This is from the AP. Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett batted away Democrats' skeptical questions on Tuesday on abortion, health care, and a possible disputed election fight over transferring presidential power, insisting in a long and lively confirmation hearing she would bring no personal agenda to the court but decide cases as they come. That's how it should be, right? The 48-year-old appellate court judge declared her conservative views with often colloquial language but refused many specifics. She declined to say whether she would recuse herself from any election-related cases involving President Donald Trump, who nominated her to fill the seat of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and is pressing to have her confirmed before the November 3rd election. Judges just can't wake up one day and say, I have an agenda. I like guns, I hate guns, I like abortion, I hate abortion, and walk in like a royal queen and impose their will on the world, Barrett told the Senate Judiciary Committee during its second day of hearings. It's not the law of Amy, she said, it's the law of the American people. And that is so important. They are trying so hard to make it seem as if she is the final arbiter of all these laws, that she's going to step in there and suddenly she's going to have the loudest, biggest voice to go in and make any changes. But that's not how it works. She's going to be a Supreme Court justice. The Supreme Court justices are there to interpret the law. They are not there to make the law. The ones who are supposed to make the law are the senators, the congressmen. They make the law. Yet they make these laws, or they, dilly-dally around and don't make the laws and then complain about them to the other departments about why they're not making such laws, but those departments aren't in charge of making those laws. So they try to confuse people, and the people who really are having a disservice done to them are the young people who are watching these events hoping they're going to learn something. They're not learning anything from the Democrat side except how to lie, cheat, and steal, and they might not even realize that that's the strategy that's going on, but it most definitely is. So the next big story that's here, This is really making its way around. CIA whistleblower exposes Biden's alleged role with the deaths of SEAL team, claims to have documented proof. Well, this doesn't look good for Obama and the Biden team, but we already knew that. Anyone who's been paying attention knows that. It says in this full interview of a CIA whistleblower, Alan Harrow Parrott, who's being interviewed by Charles Wood and Nicholas No, it surfaced on Sunday and shows the three talking about the blackmail extortion of $152 billion US dollars that was sent to the Iran to cover up the deaths of SEAL Team 6 by the Obama-Biden administration. Parrott, a former CIA agent, has extensive experience with the intelligence community and is planning on releasing documents this week on what he said are going to uncover numerous crime sprees. The following are updates that have unfolded since the article was originally published. Update number one here on today, President Trump retweeted the article, this article. Yesterday, the maker of the videos below, towards the end of the article, confirmed in the footage that the documents have now been delivered to a congressperson for evaluation. In this video, the CIA whistleblower said the following: a heavy price has been paid for what we are uncovering and millions of people want to see. The truth has to come out, says Charles Woods, the father of Ty Wood, who was killed in the Benghazi compound and who was very interested in the discussion. This is the beginning and the end of the bad guys, Parrott said. Anna Haidt was the first to report on the CIA whistleblower tape in the following Twitter post, in which she says, Alan Harrow Parrott, CIA whistleblower, tells Charles Woods, father of Tyrone Woods killed in Benghazi, that Obama and Biden sent Iran $152 billion as a cover-up for the deaths of SEAL Team 6. Alan said all of the proof will come out, documents and audio. The video of CIA whistleblower surfaces on what the Trump campaign reminds us is the 8-year anniversary of when Democrat Joe Biden lied in a debate about the security needs of Americans in Benghazi. Nicholas No, military veteran, is the one who brought the three together and suggested in the video that the reason he ended up running into Parrott was that he was researching why it appeared as if the American government wanted all the people connected with Benghazi to lie. Okay, so there's more to this article here. As you can see, a lot more. I'm going to leave that for you, and the link will be available at firstcontactradio.com, so you can go check that out along with all the other links. But as we can see, little by little, information is coming out on the corruption of Biden, the corruption of Obama, the corruption of that administration. I know that there are a lot of people that are chomping at the bit to see the justice brought to all of these people yesterday, but sometimes things take a while. You know, John F. Kennedy was killed by the deep state. The deep state was the CIA. The CIA formed in 1947. By the mid-50s, they were engaged along with the German scientists that were part of their team in a program of mind control and also controlling the media. That deep state continued to grow over all these many, many years. And here it is, 57 years later since the Kennedy assassination. The same deep state which killed John F. Kennedy is the same deep state that is out there causing problems to this day. Same deep state trying to kill President Trump. Well, the lies of the deep state are coming forward. Obama is definitely well connected into that, as is Biden and many, many of the other presidents that were out there before Trump. You know, the thing about Trump, as I said yesterday, and you can go research and find out for yourself, President Trump is not a New World Order guy. He's not. He's not about the New World Order. George Bush Sr. was about the New World Order. So was Jr. So was Bill Clinton. So was Hillary Clinton. So was Barack Obama. So is Joe Biden. So is John Kerry. So is Mitt Romney. John McCain. You see John McCain's wife is out there with Biden. You see members of the Bush family supporting Biden. They're part of the same club, the New World Order Agenda Club, and they're trying to fight for their lives because they know that they're getting caught. So this is really good to see this article coming out here about Obama and the information. There will certainly be much more that will be coming to light, that is for sure. Now, another big story that was happening today is Ghislaine Maxwell. Had a day in court. She urges the U.S. Appeals Court to keep damaging this deposition secret. All right. Goes on to say that the lawyer for Ghislaine Maxwell pressed a federal appeals court Tuesday to overturn a ruling that the longtime associate of late financier Jeffrey Epstein says jeopardizes her ability to defend against criminal charges she enabled his sexual abuse of girls. Maxwell's lawyer, Adam Mueller, told the U.S. Second District Court of Appeals in Manhattan that releasing Maxwell's sworn April 2016 deposition, which was taken in a separate civil case, threatened to undermine her trial scheduled for next July. The British socialite said she has said bad publicity from disclosing intimate, sensitive, and personal details from the deposition would violate her right against self-incrimination and imperil a fair trial because prospective jurors may hold it against her. We're concerned about preserving the status quo, Mueller told a 3-judge panel in a nearly 2.5-hour hearing. There's going to be a public criminal trial, and that this will be aired in open court, we think that vindicates the public interest. Maxwell, 58, has pleaded not guilty to charges that she helped Epstein recruit and groom underage girls as young as 14 years of age to engage in illegal sexual acts in the mid-90s, and not guilty to perjury for having denied involvement under oath. Her 418-page deposition came from a long-settled defamation lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre, who has said Epstein kept her as a sex slave with Maxwell's help. U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska ordered the deposition unsealed in July, saying Maxwell did not overcome the presumption the public had a right to see it. Mueller, however, said the deposition was filled with suggestive questions akin to when did you stop beating your wife, and that Maxwell's denial of certain questions would be as revealing to her as admissions. It certainly implies that the other side has an evidentiary basis to ask the question, he said. David Boies, a lawyer for Giuffre, countered and said that there was substantial presumption of public access, but drew skepticism from the panel about why his client deserved it. What does she care about it? Circuit Judge Rosemary Pooler asked. Sure, she wants the whole thing out, but that's the legally cognizable interest. Boies responded that it was important that the materials be unsealed in an even-handed way to ensure that no context is lost. Christine Waltz, a lawyer for the Miami Herald newspaper, which also wants the deposition unsealed, told the appeals court that Maxwell's mere speculation about how an unsealing would affect her criminal trial was no justification to block it. All right, so said the U.S. Attorney Laura said the ruling for Maxwell would blur the lines between criminal and civil cases. So anyway, we're going to hear more about this. This case is far from over. She's not going to get the information. Well, we're waiting to hear, I guess, on the decisions that are going to be made because they had adjourned last I had heard earlier today. So we'll see where it turns out. But as I find out, I will definitely make sure that I get that information across to you. Now, one topic that's a very important topic these days is the topic of voting. In just 3 weeks, we're going to be going through this process. As a matter of fact, we are engaged in the process right now. There's a lot of people that are concerned about what's going to happen. The president has been talking about the cheating and the voter fraud that will be happening. Now, I know that concerns people, but let me ask you this. Do you think the president is going to talk about such things and not do anything about them? Of course not. As a matter of fact, if you listen to the words that he says, in many ways it sounds like he's baiting them, challenging them, because he says they're going to cheat, they're going to do voter fraud. During one of his peaceful protests, he even said the words, they better be careful. They better be careful. Now that's a warning to them that they're being watched and they're going to get caught. So don't be all worried about what's going on out there, because our president has really taken the time to do what he needed to do. He's taken the time to make sure that there is proper systems in place. Now, one of the things that happened, let me refresh your memory, was back a couple years ago, President Trump had a voting panel that he put together. And then shortly afterwards, he disbanded. So Trump disbands the Voter Fraud Commission. President Trump is dumping a controversial commission that was charged with investigating his unsubstantiated claims of voter fraud during the 2016 election, the White House said on Wednesday. Trump asked the Department of Homeland Security to look into the issue instead. Despite substantial evidence of voter fraud, many states have refused to provide the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity with basic information relevant to its inquiry. A statement from the president said, "Rather than engaging in endless legal battles at taxpayer expense, today I signed an executive order to dissolve the commission." The commission was the focus of heated contention even before it was formally announced in May, with Vice President Mike Pence as the chairman and Kansas Secretary of State Chris Corbach as vice chairman. Democrats urged Trump to abandon the idea altogether, but the president chose to press forward. The White House struggled to find Democrats willing to give the effort a bipartisan patina after prominent party leaders denounced the efforts as an attempt to give respectability to Trump's assertion that 3 to 5 million people voted illegally in 2016, a volume that the president suggested accounted for Hillary Clinton's decisive win in the popular vote. Democrats and liberal groups rejoiced over the commission's demise, but in an interview with Politico, Corbett said that the exuberance is misplaced. Anyone on the left needs to realize that by throwing the food in the air, they just lost a seat at the table. Okay, so voter panel disband because they didn't want to turn over the voter rolls, Democrats. So then election integrity was put into Homeland Security. This was back at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. Let's look at the date of this article. Okay, the date of this article here, January 3rd, 2018. Here's another article about the same subject, DHS to continue to look into voter fraud. Dated January 5th. The president may have dissolved the commission, but he turned the investigation into voter fraud over the Department of Homeland Security. When President Trump dissolved an embattled White House committee investigating allegations that millions voted illegally in the 2016 election, he blamed its failure on the resistance of blue state election officials to hand over sensitive voter data. Despite substantial evidence of voter fraud, many states have refused to provide the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity with basic information relevant to its inquiry, according to the White House statement announcing the decision on Wednesday. In his executive order, however, Trump didn't shut down the investigation or acknowledge that voter fraud is a non-issue, as his critics have demanded. Instead, he turned the investigation over to the Department of Homeland Security, a cabinet-level agency that has access to much of the data on the commission request, but couldn't get from the states. This move triggers alarms among voting and civil rights advocates who point out that the commission's work, which many in the left viewed as a pretext for the new round of voter ID laws, can now continue behind closed doors, exempt from open meetings and public record laws. Trump isn't giving up on his quest to remove people from voter rolls. Ari Berman, an elections expert and investigative reporter, wrote in Mother Jones on Thursday, the effort is just going underground. Meanwhile, Chris Corbach, the defunct commission's vice chairman and an immigration hardliner, insists he'll be working closely with DHS on the investigation. DHS knows the identity of everyone who has green cards and temporary visas. He told NPR in an interview, "You can take those names and dates and births and run against those states' voter rolls to see which of these people are actually registered to vote in the state, and then once you know that, you can look deep and see if any of those individuals actually voted." That's never been done before, and that's immensely valuable. Okay, so if you've been worried about what was going to happen with the voting, rest assured, Homeland Security has been on the case for quite some time. So let's see how this thing plays out, shall we? Let's not get all worried because we hear that the Democrats are going to cheat. We know they're going to cheat. They're making every effort to cheat. But just because they try to cheat doesn't mean they're going to be successful. And when you have a president who is announcing at every opportunity that they are going to cheat and he's telling people about it, it's not so easy for them to do the cheating because now you have more eyeballs on the situation making sure that they're not behaving badly. Of course, we know they're behaving badly. We can see the stories about the voter fraud that is being discovered at this time, the Project Veritas video on the ballot harvesting that's going on with Ilhan Omar and the problems up there in Minnesota. We see the ballots that they're finding in all different states that are being tossed aside, thrown in garbages, thrown in rivers, thrown in different places. So we know it's out there, but it's being found out. People are going to jail. People are being arrested. And in 3 weeks from now, the process is going to go through an intense phase. But we just have to trust that the powers that be, President Trump and his administration, have put together what is necessary to make sure that this election is done fairly. He doesn't want anyone to cheat. President Trump isn't going to be cheating. He doesn't want the other team to cheat. Nobody should want cheating to occur. It's not right. It's not fair. But it seems to be something that we've accepted into our lives as happening. And maybe we should rethink the process of that. Okay. Let's change gears again. Got another story here involving Obama. But this time it's Obama and Antifa. Obama and Antifa. It says here, Obama, Brennan imported overseas terrorists into the U.S. to form Antifa. Many Americans to this day are wondering how all the violence, mayhem, riots, and criminality came upon America. It's as if someone just flipped the switch and it all started and our world changed. Well, that's exactly what happened. The groups are executing the insurrection were carefully planned, groomed, and prepared by the Obama administration and its remaining shadow government once President Trump was elected. Just waiting for the green light to burn, destroy, and yes, even kill. You see, it was all planned. This is the one investigative reporter, George Eliasson, an American who lives in the Donbass region of East Ukraine, is proposing, and it makes sense. We posted each other research from Eliasson a couple of weeks ago there. Eliasson's theory is that Brennan filled the Antifa funnel into America over the last decade with terrorists trained in Syria and Ukraine. He calls them nationalists. We think that the term that fits is fascist, meaning those that will hurt you if you don't believe and support their political agenda. Nationalist doesn't necessarily need to be a dirty word. There are plenty of American nationalists, those that believe in the vision of our founding fathers, versus some globalist, communist world government garbage. In any event, once again, we find Eliasson's meticulous research intriguing and thought the American people should be aware of it. History will remember this as John Brennan's insurgency. The outgoing CIA director beefed up a domestic insurgent movement with foreign fighters on behalf of the Obama administration, writes Eliasson. The play the DNC is making goes much further than winning the 2020 election. The fact they are willing to attack and destroy part of their own base should have done more than raise a few eyebrows. The major political shift away from the American democracy isn't towards socialism, it's toward an integral nationalism that takes away political accountability to the people and makes office holders immune to prosecution for any crime they commit. What you're witnessing today aren't protests, it's the new way politics are done. Okay, so who else is out there involved with Antifa funding them? Well, a guy named George Soros. And George Soros, we know, was involved with the Nazis, that he was collecting property from those who were Jews who were killed. He got rich during that time. There's an interview out there with him you can find. He seemed to be pretty happy with what was going on, thought of it as a good time of his life. And now he's out there working to destabilize countries. And that's what he does. He destabilizes countries. He picks groups that he thinks are weak-minded groups and pits them against other groups to go out cause problems. Here in America, what he's doing is he's going after the black community because he's outright said he thinks blacks are easy to manipulate, and he's going to use them basically as cannon fodder to help destabilize America. So that's why we see all these riots going on, and George Soros is, his name is thrown around in circles with all of these events. You see these buses pull up, people get off the buses, they got these big pre-printed flyers that are there. They've got, all of the materials that was created by somebody and paid for by somebody with deep pockets. and then they're getting on the buses and they're going to the next location and the next location and the next location. They're getting paid. Now, do any of these people realize that they're being used? Maybe they do, but maybe they don't care. But we'll see how it plays out. Usually it doesn't work out so good for those who are being used, because then those who are using them eventually find out or determine that the ones they're using are expendable, and therein lies the big problem. Once they become expendable, then that's that. Then the person realizes a little bit too late that they've been used, and there's nothing that can be done about that at that point. Okay, so let's switch gears. Let's talk about something a little otherworldly, shall we? Otherworldly, as in UFOs, extraterrestrials, things of this nature. Let me see here. There we go. Google Earth Frenzy, a 60-foot man-made disk exposed by melting Antarctic ice. The conspiracy theorist who made the so-called discovery is convinced the object is intelligently designed, but viewers on YouTube had some rather more plausible explanations. A Google Earth conspiracy theorist is convinced he found a man-made flying saucer emerging from the melting ice in Antarctica. YouTuber Mr. MBB333 made the apparent discovery after being sent the coordinates by a follower last week. In a video posted to his channel, he zooms in on what seems to be a circular shape, partially obscured by rocks. This appears to be a 60-foot wide disc sticking out of the ground, apparently being recently revealed by the melting snow and ice. There is the object. It looks like it was intelligently designed. Half of it is under the ground, the other half on top of the frozen snow and ice. You can tell this area started to thaw out. Here's a picture right there. There's the object in question. It's revealing this intelligently designed structure. That is not some random iceberg. This is a semicircle. In his 9-minute long video, the uploader edited the Google Earth images into negative format, which he claimed also showed an elevated circle at the top of the structure. The video has been seen a whopping 170,000 times since being shared on October 9th, sparking a wave of suggestions from viewers in the comments section. Some of them include, it doesn't look stuck to the ground, it looks like it's hovering. One bizarrely claimed, the black area under it looks like a shadow, and if you look to your left, you will see a light source which looks like it's coming from inside of a cave or tunnel. This is a very interesting find. Another wrote, absolutely artificial. Someone said that as the ice melt in Antarctica, we would begin to see ships reveal themselves, and the government would have a very hard time explaining them away. A third agreed, saying that 100% something else. That's way too obvious at denying that at all, but many others found more plausible explanations for the strange find. One skeptic suggested it was a small pool of water. Someone else said it's just a pool of water. If you look around at the other features locally, you'll notice that other bodies of water also have a similar hue. So, something to ponder. Is this what it's claimed to be? I don't know. But let me throw out some thoughts here on Google Earth, shall I? I was watching a show one day, and they were having some engineers and people who were working on the Google Earth project talking. And one of the people said, one of the gentlemen on the show talked about how they had these Google planes that would fly back and forth, and they would map the ground, map the area. And then they would use Photoshop, and they would put these together. He then made a statement that there really aren't any Google satellites. This is what they tell people because it sounds cool. The fact of the matter is they were just planes and then Photoshop that puts things together. Well, all this got me thinking, and if they can go and they can use Photoshop to create these images, why couldn't they use Photoshop to create any of the images that they want to display? Why couldn't somebody go into the database of Google Earth and start placing objects for people to find anywhere throughout the world? It would be pretty easy to do if somebody had that access to that. So we might see these things, and it might be somebody trying to send people on a wild goose chase. We don't know for sure. We just know that this is a picture that we're seeing from Google Earth. Was it really taken by a satellite? Are there really satellites that are taking these pictures, or is this just a picture that was placed in there in the database, in the files by somebody there that's working for Google Earth? maybe a graphic designer. I'm sure they have plenty of those. So something to consider. We don't want to take everything at face value. I think being a skeptic is healthy to some degree or another because it helps us to get to the point where we don't believe everything we see until we are able to confirm it. And once we're able to confirm it, then we are able to look at things in a much more acceptable manner. Acceptable in terms of discovering what is the truth of what's going on. Because if we only look at things and we only go to one source and we don't confirm from other sources, you're not sure what you're going to get. You might just get a made up story, and we hear and have a lot of those things. Okay? So there is our UFO mystery of the day. I want to switch gears here. I want to go over to this next article, and I want to get into the discussion of the evil, the good and the evil that is taking place. This article here, or actually letter, was written to President Trump back in June 7th, 2020, and it's very significant to what's going on. I'm going to read this entire letter because I think this is important. Mr. President, in recent months we've been witnessing the formation of two opposing sides I would call biblical: the children of light and the children of darkness. The children of light constitute the most conspicuous part of humanity, while the children of darkness represent an absolute minority. And yet the former are the object of the sort of discrimination which places them in a situation of moral inferiority with respect to their adversaries, who often hold strategic positions in government, politics, in the economy, and the media. In an apparently inexplicable way, the good are held hostage by the wicked and by those who help them, either out of self-interest or fearfulness. These two sides, which have a biblical nature, follow the clear separation between the offspring of the woman and the offspring of the serpent. On the other hand, there are those who, although they have thousand defects and weaknesses, are motivated by the desire to do good, to be honest, to raise a family, to engage in work, to give prosperity to their homeland, to help the needy, and in obedience to the law of God, to merit the kingdom of heaven. On the other hand, there are those who serve themselves, who do not hold any moral principles, who want to demolish the family and the nation, exploit workers, and make themselves unduly wealthy, foment internal divisions and wars, and accumulate power and money. For them, the fallacious illusion of temporal well-being will one day, if they do not repent, yield to the terrible fate that awaits them far from God in eternal damnation. In society, Mr. President, these two opposing realities coexist as eternal enemies, just as God and Satan are eternal enemies. And it appears that the children of darkness, whom we may easily identify with the deep state which you wisely oppose and which is fiercely waging war against you in these days, have decided to show their cards, so to speak, by now revealing their plans. They seem to be so certain of already having everything under control that they have laid aside the circumspection that until now they had at least partially concealed their true intentions. The investigations already underway will reveal the true responsibility of those who managed the COVID emergency, not only in the area of healthcare, but also in politics, the economy, and the media. We will probably find in this colossal operation of social engineering, there are people who have decided the fate of humanity, arrogating to themselves the right to act against the will of citizens and their representatives in the governments of nations. We will also discover that the riots in these days are provoked by those who, seeing that the virus is inevitably fading and that the social alarm of the pandemic is waning, necessarily have had to provoke civil disturbances because they would be followed by repression, which, although legitimate, could be condemned as an unjustified aggression against the population. The same thing is also happening in Europe in perfect synchrony. It is quite clear that the use of street protest is instrumental to the purposes of those who would like to see someone elected in the upcoming presidential election who embodies the goals of the deep state and who expresses those goals faithfully and with the conviction. It will not be surprising in the few months that we learn once again that the hidden behind these acts of vandalism and violence are those who hope to profit from the dissolution of the social order, as to build a world without freedom, Solve et coagula, as the Masonic adage teaches. Although it may seem disconcerting, the opposing alignments I have described are also found in religious circles. There are faithful shepherds who care for the flock of Christ, but there are also mercenary infidels who seek to scatter the flock and hand the sheep over to be devoured by ravenous wolves. It is not surprising that these mercenaries are allies of the children of darkness and hate the children of light. Just as there is a deep state, there is also a deep church that betrays its duties and forwears its proper commitments before God. Thus, the invisible enemy, whom good rulers fight against in public affairs, is also fought against by good shepherds in the ecclesiastical sphere. It is a spiritual battle which I spoke about in my recent appeal, which was published on May 8th. For the first time, the United States has in you a president who courageously defends the right to life, who is not ashamed to denounce the persecution of Christians throughout the world, who speaks of Jesus Christ and the right of citizens to worship, the freedom of worship. Your participation in the March for Life, and more recently your proclamation of the month of April as a National Child Abuse Prevention Month, are actions that confirm which side you wish to fight on. And I dare to believe that both of us are on the same side in this battle, albeit with different weapons. For this reason, I believe that the attack to which you were subjected after your visit to the National Shrine of St. John Paul II is part of the orchestrated media narrative which seeks not to fight racism and bring social order, but to aggravate dispositions, not to bring justice, but to legitimize violence and crime, not to serve the truth, but to favor one political faction. And it is disconcerting that there are bishops, such as those whom I recently denounced, who by their words prove that they are aligned on the opposing side. They are subservient to a deep state, to globalism, to aligned thought, to the New World Order, which they invoke ever more frequently in the name of a universal brotherhood which has nothing Christian about it, but which evokes the Masonic ideals of those who want to dominate the world by driving God out of the courts, out of the schools, out of families, and perhaps even out of churches. The American people are mature enough to understand how much mainstream media does not want to spread the truth, but seeks to silence and distort it, spreading the lie that is useful for the purposes of their masters. However, it is important that the good, who are the majority, wake up from their sluggishness and do not accept being deceived by the minority of dishonest people with unfavorable purposes. It is necessary that the good, the children of light, come together and make their voices heard. What more effective way is there to do this, Mr. President, than by prayer, asking the Lord to protect you, the United States, and all humanity from this enormous attack of the enemy? Before the power of prayer, the deceptions of the children of darkness will collapse. Their plots will be revealed. Their betrayal will be shown. Their frightening power will end in nothing, brought to light and exposed for what it is, an infernal deception. Mr. President, my prayer is constantly turned to the beloved American nation, where I had the privilege and honor of being sent by Pope Benedict the 16th as apocalyptic nuncio in this dramatic and decisive hour for all humanity. I am praying for you and also for those who are at your side in the government of the United States. I trust that the American people are united with me and you in prayer to Almighty God, united in the invisible enemy of all humanity. I bless you and the First Lady, the beloved American nation, and all men and women of goodwill. Signed, Carlo Maria Vigano, Archbishop. So, children of light versus the children of darkness. We've heard these terms plenty of times. This is part of the spiritual battle that's going on, and it definitely is going on. If you haven't caught on to that by now, I suggest you stop, you look around, you realize the events that are taking place, and you realize this is a spiritual battle. Battle of good versus evil. I think we can see examples of this story that is playing out during this timeline in life. I think we can see examples in biblical stories. If we read through the book of Revelation, we see what's going on. We see similarities. I've been saying for a long time, probably from the time that Donald Trump came down the escalator, that Donald Trump was sent by God. And I believe that Donald Trump is either Archangel Michael or is playing the role of Archangel Michael, but that he is here as a warrior, and he is here to make sure that the deep state, that the dark demonic forces that are here get defeated. I believed that then, I believe that now, and I will continue to believe that. And I believe over time there have been many others who have seen exactly what I see and will continue to stand strong for God. See, our faith is being tested. Evil is really coming alive more than it ever has before. I used to think that, growing up, seeing evil, used to think that it was just sequestered to certain groups. Certainly, one could understand that the Church of Satan was one of the sources of this demonic activity, but it seemed to be limited to that. But nowadays, it seems as if the Church of Satan has expanded and it's become more global, more worldwide. And the Democrat Party certainly seems to have embraced the Church of Satan. Their activities are very satanic. Everything they seem to be about is evil. I don't understand how somebody could be connected with that party and not understand the evilness that is going on there. But that's how it works. Evil is deceptive. Bible says even God's children will get fooled. So I believe there's a lot of people that have been fooled during these times. But there's an opportunity for people to wake up. There truly is. But in order for people to wake up, we have to be able to humble ourselves. So this brings us to what I want to show you for today's article here, today's biblical passage. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear them from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. Okay, this is part of a bigger section here. It says, Solomon finished the house of the Lord, the king's house, and all that came into Solomon's heart to make the house of the Lord, and in his own house he prosperously appeared. And the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said unto him, I've heard your prayer and have chosen this place to myself for a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locust to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people. But if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin. So you have the whole context of where it fits in. But we need to pray. We need to understand. There was an important passage or line in the letter from the cardinal, the Archbishop, in which he talked about the child of the offspring of the serpent versus the offspring of Eve. These are two different things. The first child that Eve had was the pureblood. And then along came Cain. But Cain came along from another source. If you read through some of the Apocrypha, if you read through the Nag Hammadi library, you seem to get an understanding that Eve was deceived and possibly even raped by a being claiming to be God. She then had this child, which ended up being the first murderer. Well, how did God produce a child that became the first murderer? And then why was it after Cain was gone, why would the next child, was that child considered the pure-blood child? Because it certainly wasn't Cain. Abel was pure blood, but he was killed, and then along came Seth later. So there's been evil that has been part of our story for a long, long time, going all the way back to the beginning. So if we haven't, understood this by this point in time, it's because maybe we're not paying attention. I think everybody's had an opportunity to go through a church process, to read some sort of spiritual books, to understand something is going on out there. People may choose to turn a blind eye to it, choose to ignore it because they don't know how to deal with it, but it's out there. So the way we deal with it is we deal with it through prayer. We put on the armor of God and we go about our business and we're just sending positive vibes into the world because the deceiver, the adversary, and all of the minions that are out there are trying to send negative vibes into the world. We send positive ones to counteract what they're doing. And I know that there's a lot more of us out there sending out good than there are those sending the bad. So let's take a moment right now before we close the show. Just take a moment, close your eyes. Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, we pray this day for your protection upon the leadership of this country. We pray for the protection of all the people here in America and throughout the world. We pray that our minds become clear, that we begin to the process of seeing through whatever illusions that are catching us up, whatever deceptions that are in our way. We see clearly on how to move past them. And we simply look at each and every one as a brother and a sister. And we find a way to be able to come together in peace, in unity, as we are supposed to be. And most importantly in all this, God, that we have the strength to continuously push this darkness, this evil out of lives, and continuously bring the goodness, the godness into our lives each and every day. In Jesus' name, amen. That's it, my friends. That's the show for today. I will be back tomorrow. There'll be more news and information. It isn't going to stop tonight. So have yourselves a good night. I'll be back soon. That's it. My name's Josh Poet. The show's called First Contact Radio, Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.